talking about difficult topics and stretching, let's talk some more about nothing and the principle that nothing is everything. Now, something I find funny, I've often heard from people who don't understand physics. When they talk about the Big Bang and why that can't be, so they say, well, something cannot come out of nothing. You can't create all of this from nothing. And of course they say that because they don't understand physics. Everything in existence comes from nothing. But it's the people don't understand what nothing is. Nothingness is the allness. It is absolutely everything but without resistance and in oneness. So it exists without manifestation. That's why we refer to it as nothing. There's absolutely nothing. It cannot be experienced. But it's the premise of everything. So, how explain this to physicists? And what they're now starting to realize, they haven't figured out all of it yet, of course, but something and nothing is exactly the same, just different states. And it exists in both states at the same time. And here we come into the principle with the vertical and the horizontal. The horizontal is the somethingness, and the vertical is the nothingness. The vertical is the pure information, the pure mathematics of existence. And it cannot be experienced. It can create experiences in you when you receive, when you interact with it, but in itself, it cannot be experienced. It's basically, the way I explained it's like if you take the number, number 7, that cannot be experienced. It can only be experienced through manifestation. Right? You need a form to understand what the concept of 7 means. In itself, it's still, part of how the universe operates, but it cannot be experienced without form. And this is more like how the vertical operates and how nothingness exists. It's precise, absolute mathematics. And then you have the next level. You have the vertical and the horizontal. If you can think the meeting point between the two, their information, the vertical will be then converted. And why is it being converted? So we can experience it. We can experience ourselves. If we take the absolute nothingness, that's not relevant to you when you have karma. And you exist in the horizontal only to work out your karma, which is your resistance to the absolute oneness. So, if you can think of every dimension, and there are like infinite numbers of dimensions, they all have then different mathematics, different geometry, different premise, laws of nature. That's why there are different dimensions. So when you then have these different spaces, the moment the nothingness kind of hits, it will be filtered through those laws of nature, which means that then turns into the potential of what can be. And what one in physics today still relates to as what they think is the nothing is actually the potential state, which is that kind of conversion point. So it goes from the absolute oneness, absolute nothingness, into the potential of somethingness. Then it becomes all the potentials and variables available when consciousness meets nothingness. Because that's when your karma will start manifesting. Wherever you are in your evolution, what consciousness you are in, that being mirrored in the nothingness will immediately release the distances, which is your karma. And each type of dimensional life form we incarnate into will have a different, from different octave, different set of vibration that determines what part of your karma and resistance you can then work with. So when you then have the potential, which is the collective consciousness, which then creates and make up the type of universe you're in, every variable, every choice, every possible combination of variation will exist as a potential. Because that's also the mathematics. When you have the complete filtered through limitation, then you will have a limited option. And that becomes all variables and potentials available. Then consciousness will be mirrored in that. That will cause manifestation, but only in whatever you actively resist. So where you have your resistance will activate manifestation. Now, that potential stage can be observed as absolute blackness, absolute darkness, because there is nothing there. And that's why physicists are a little bit confused about that. The darkness represents information because it's not manifested yet. It's important to understand that light is a product of resistance, just like in lamps. Electricity hits either a cord of metal or a gas or something, and the resistance will cause light. So whenever you have a resistance to any of these possibilities, that will cause that friction that turns into light. And this is why all manifestation starts with light. Whenever you are in contact with something in yourself, in other dimensions, spiritually, you will be experiencing that as light. But it's actually your own resistance that you are seeing, because it's only the products of your own resistance that you can experience. So, even though we are in an infinite universe with infinite possibilities, still selected and limited, you can only experience what is in accordance with where you have your own resistance. And that will then become the reality that you experience. And this works on a macro level, how you perceive the universe in general, but also down to how things work in your life. It's always about how your resistance at any given moment is being translated into different forms of manifestations and interactions. It always starts with light. And this is why I said when we start the spiritual work and when we enter a new space, it can even be a new belief system, because that is a slightly different space with different vibration. Then, because we are different and not fully attuned, then we will have a lot of phenomena. We'll have a lot of so-called spiritual experiences, a lot of light, a lot of everything, because you're not in tune. The moment you're actually aligned, there is no light, because you have no resistance. You go into nothing. And this is why the sum of everything is nothing. Your absolute center is nothingness. It goes beyond experience. So, as long as you can experience it, it's still karma.